Hello, Robert Weebe's Search for Order is a 302-page book and 11 chapters discussing a new developing middle class, progressivism, and a community searching for an identity. The book was published by Hill and Wang in New York in 1967, authored by Robert H. Wiebe, and is cataloged in the Library of Congress. Chapter 1 discusses and sets the stage for Weebe's book by explaining that the late 19th century found America was ruled by small towns and local government. Chapter 2 goes on to describe Weebe's small island communities and how the few controlled local wealth and power. People were starting to lose their sense of identity and how they were. Chapter 3 explains that the crisis of 1883 and again in 1885 showed a corrupt system of government. Everyone grew a sense of self-determination with anti-monopoly views. Groups such as the Knights of Labor began to take back a corrupt America by preserving democracy and individualism through revolutions. Chapter 4 explains how populism was used to and emerged as reforms to fight the urban elite. But with the election of 1896, populism was dead, and it was backed by the Silver Crusade. The Gold Crusade actually won. By Chapter 5, a new middle class was developing with special skills in medicine and law, and unions emerged to take back those old values and ways that weren't working anymore. So a new middle class develops, and it was defined by special skill and talent. In Chapter 6, Weebe describes the bureaucratic theory and how the new middle class was successful in it because everyone was educated. It brought a modernized society and a structured government. Weebe goes on in Chapter 7 to describe how the new middle class used progressivism through bureaucratic means to get change in such areas as poverty and crime. In Chapter 8, a new middle class was seeking national solutions for local reform. Progressive reform was cemented during the Woodrow Wilson era. However, the new middle class was drawn by Republicans and small farmers and unionists by Democrats. So an illusion formed with no clear winner. Chapter 10 describes the infancy years of American foreign policy and how hesitant and curious the new middle class was with people around the world, yet they wanted worldwide peace. Chapter 10 goes on to discuss the 1910s and how a failed League of Nations brought on the 1920s after World War I. Yet the new middle class supported the League of Nations, which was Woodrow Wilson's idealist plan for a new world order because of peace. They wanted peace, and that's what promoted it through the League of Nations. Chapter 11 brings an end of an era for the progressive and new ideas of Americanization, patriotism, crackdown on immigration and immigrants, exclusion acts, and so on. Patriotism developed also, and then the new middle class lost hope and shrunk. The government was in chaos and unable to agree as a scandalous president, Warren G. Harding, took office during that year. So what does a search for order mean for historians and historiography? The book helps historians connect and establish historiography by what Weebe doesn't say. There are several examples of this. Weebe failed to connect his book in a national, transnational way. Technology and communication connected us to the world in this way. From what Weebe says, we were separated from and isolated from the rest of the world. Weebe's book ends like it's an end of an era for Americans, yet progressivism aspirations continue. The social question isn't asked at all. Weebe ran a risk of duplicity by explaining modernity through middle class, and that's what usually is used to describe and get democratization. Weebe needs a greater emphasis on communication and technology as well. Weebe treats modern American history as unfinished, even though modern history is actually just beginning and continuing. Lastly, historians have to connect Weebe's book to the rest of the world to explain a transnational history. Thank you.